Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today we're going to go ahead and continue on with the Q&A response video. For those of you who don't know, I had asked the questioner in the response or in the form of a video back in September asking you to ask me any Q&A questions, but then I went on vacation, I had a lot to do, had other videos to put out, and I'm just now getting into it, or getting back to it. Now I wanted to keep my videos to 10 minutes at the maximum length, which I will go ahead and set now. And I will continue off from where I left off from in the questionnaires or answering. All right, got a lot of questions to get through, so let's go ahead and get onto it. So leaving off was Cuervo RG, and he asked Dior Homme Intense versus Aventus, Sauvage versus Bleu de Chanel, La Nuit de l'Homme versus Tuscan Leather, and Allure Homme Sport Eau Extreme versus Allure Homme Sport, and Tom Ford versus Creed. Now, he asked the question, complimented or not complimented? That is the question. I don't think that makes much sense, just because all of those fragrances and all of those houses that you list, they're all complimented. So none of them are not complimented. So what I assume this question is in the form of is which gets more compliments? And that's how I'm going to answer this question. So of those, so the first one was, and I'm going to list it to you just based off of my experience. And by my experience, I mean other people that I've heard around, etc. Dior Homme Intense versus Aventus. Compliment-wise, Aventus gets more compliment than Dior Homme Intense. Though we're grasping at straws here, but Aventus gets more compliments. Sauvage versus Bleu de Chanel. Off the top, Bleu de Chanel gets more compliments than Sauvage. That said, Sauvage is just a recent release, so it's, I mean, you know, you can't really compare the two. Sauvage gets compliments as well, but Bleu de Chanel, per capita so far, has gotten more compliments than Sauvage. La Nuit de l'Homme versus Tuscan Leather. La Nuit de l'Homme, hands down, it's gotten more compliments. In fact, I think La Nuit de l'Homme, out of all of these on the list, has probably gotten the most compliments. I think I did a top 10 complimented or sum up of them. But La Nuit de l'Homme is one of the most complimented fragrances. Allure Homme Sport Eau Extreme versus Allure Homme Sport. The original Allure Homme Sport gets more compliments. And Tom Ford versus Creed, what gets more compliments? Man, that's a tough question. It's a really tough question, but it's probably going to have to be Creed that gets more compliments than the Tom Ford. But you know what? I could be wrong on that last one, just because Tom Ford gets a lot of compliments as well, too. Yeah. All right. So that answers that question. Next question from Wise Man. I notice no matter what fragrance I wear, unless someone gets very close to me, they will not notice the smell. Unless I bathe in the fragrance or its beast mode fragrances, sure they notice. One female friend of mine has to lean in close to smell my fragrances, so is that normal for a fragrance to work that way? And if no one else can smell the fragrance I am wearing, am I wasting my time wearing even though I can smell how good I smell? I understand that it takes more than a fragrance to make a man, I just want to know, should I? So basically what this guy is asking is, should he continue to wear fragrances if most people can't smell them? So my response is this. It depends on the fragrance that you're wearing. Overall, you know, if you want more people to smell you, or if you want it to project more, you're probably going to have to moisturize your skin a little bit better, or do some additional tips in order to get it smelling across. But if your question is still after all this, after everything that you do, people still can't smell you with fragrances, well then I think it's really up to you. I mean, I personally would probably continue to wear fragrances even though people couldn't smell me, just because at this point I really do like smelling the fragrance along, and it kind of gives me a little bit of an aura boost, if you will, knowing that I smell good even if other people can't smell me. You know, I'm still rocking it and killing it through. But if your goal is to get people to smell you, then obviously it's a waste of money if they truly can't smell you. But again, beware of olfactory fatigue, which basically means your nose becomes used to it, but other people still can smell you. So just make sure that that's not in full effect, and then, you know, take it with it. That's probably going to be the decision that you have to make with it. All right. So the next comes from Greg Wilson. Just go ahead and checking timer. Well, it comes from Greg Wilson. If you have to stay with only niches or designers in your collection, what would be your choice? This one's a little bit tough, just because, again, I don't necessarily classify niche or designer fragrances. I've gone over this a bunch of times, but if by what everyone else is calling niche and designer, I would probably have to go with niche fragrances. I have said many times, if a gun to my head, if I had to choose only two houses, I would probably stick with Creed and Tom Ford. One for my dark fragrances, and Tom Ford for my dark fragrances, and Creed for my light fragrances. That's just my personal choice. Take it with you, take it or leave it. Next comes from Jonas Franson. Do you think Spice Bomb, Dior Intense, La Nuit, and Bleu de Chanel would be a good rotation for university during fall and winter? Only like 1-2 sprays so that it won't project that heavy, or will it be too much? I live in Sweden, so it's cold here. No, Jonas. I actually think that would be I think that's an all-star, rock-star lineup. Especially, it's a really close, solid rotation. All of them are great smelling fragrances, and all of them have good performance. Which, in the cold weather, and Sweden is a little bit more of the colder type of a temperature, I think it's perfect. I think you've chosen an excellent rotation, and nothing more needs to be said. Next comes from Martin M. Yes, 4 questions. Hello, Cody. I want to use this opportunity to compliment you with your entire channel. I really appreciate the time and effort you put into the game. Now for the questions. Have you ever tried on Lanvin Avant Garde? If so, what do you think about it? 2, could you make a top 5 list of designer fragrances to put on for New Year's? 3, what fragrances do you consider to be most suitable for put on for working out? And 4, if you choose between CH Men and Thierry Mugler Pure Malt, what fragrance would you pick out in terms of longevity and projection? And 5, if Barack Obama or Kanye West would be a fragrance, which one would you pick for them, and what would it be? Long list of questions. I'm gonna go through them very quickly. 1, have I ever tried Lanvin Avant Garde? No, I have not. 2, could you make a top 5 list of designer fragrances to put on New Year's Eve? Yes, but that will be a completely separate video. 3, what fragrances do you consider to be the most suitable to put on for working out? None. I work out probably 5 times a week if you alternate between some cardio and free weights. And I personally prefer no fragrances just because I understand that there are times where you're going to go into the gym and you're going to have a fragrance on and you can't help that. But specifically for working out in the gym, no, I don't wear a fragrance for that. 4, if you choose between CH Men, Thierry Mugler Pure Malt, which fragrance would you pick in terms of longevity and projection? I would go with Pure Malt, but they're both very, very close. And in some days, it might even be CH Men. 5, if Barack Obama, Kanye West would be a fragrance, which one would you pick from? Which would it be? What fragrance would you pick for them? That requires, I would probably say, for Obama, I would pick something like Bleu de Chanel. For Kanye West, I would pick something... it would probably have to be something a little bit more aggressive, like Musc Ravageur or something like that. Yes, those would be the 2 cents. All right, next. Vijay Upadhyay, I think is how you pronounce his name. What exactly did your fragrance journey start? What was your first cologne, if you can remember? And 2, what was the fragrance you were wearing when you first met Becky or proposed to her? What exactly my fragrance journey started quite a long time ago. I've covered this a couple times, but it started after Christmas, I think, a couple of years back. And it really depends on what you consider start, basically. The reason I say that because I technically started when I started collecting way back when with my best friend actually, Brian, and we had a competition. But I'd say seriously collecting probably about 6 years ago. Next, what was the fragrance you were wearing when you first met Becky or proposed to her? This is a good one. I think I was wearing... I actually forget what I was wearing. I think it was Bleu de Chanel when I first met her. I know what I was wearing when I proposed to her, which was nothing at all. I proposed to her fresh out of the shower, basically, and yeah. So that was that. All right, so next. Let's hear these words. That's his name. What are your thoughts on Creed oils? Are cologne oils skin scents, or do they project? I don't really have a thought on Creed oils. I generally don't go for oils no matter who produces them, just because oils tend to be more skin scents than they do project. They're very concentrated. They tend to stick closer to the skin, and for that, I generally tend to avoid them. All right. Next comes from Marcela Regina Oliveira dos Santos. Do you know of any Brazilian perfume? And next, when you started, when did I start my addiction to perfumes? Which is pretty much just the question that I just answered. When did I start collecting? But for the first question, do I know of any Brazilian perfume? No, I do not. Sorry. And from Kenneth Lanahan, question: We all know about Mint, Twisted Lily, and Oswald's, but is there another niche fragrances store in NYC that you would consider a best kept secret? Ooh. This one... Oof. No, not really. Those are really your main artisan fragrance stores. There are a couple stores here or there, but they're not really artisan stores that really specialize in, you know, a whole bunch of fragrances. There's department stores all over the place that do the same thing, but not really fragrance stores. Sorry about that. We've just hit the 10-minute mark, and unfortunately the next question would be a long one, so I'm not going to go ahead and squeeze one in. All right? So be on the lookout for part 3, which will come in a couple of days as well, too. All right? So hope you enjoyed. Again, let me know what your feedback is on this video. Always curious. Some people said I was going too fast, but I really need to kind of hurry it up if I want to be able to answer questions. So if you have trouble hearing the questions that I'm, saying basically, or then, refer to the Q&A video. All right. Thank you guys. Take care of yourselves, and you guys have a great day.